All right, so we're continuing with the equation of a circle. We didn't quite finish it. Everybody with me? Everybody listening? All right. So we did not finish equation of a circle yesterday, so let's finish it up. We did, I think example 1 was where we left off, so guess what we're going to do now? Example what? The projector's not on? Well, what's your problem? You can't see around the bend to my screen? So many things I got to plug in and turn on. Can't remember everything. Come on. All right. So anyway, it says example 2. So if you want to write example 2 down before the screen pops up, write that. And we're going to graph the equation. I'll write it down so it takes a minute for that screen to pop up. Is it on there now? All right. So write this down. This is a standard form on an equation of a circle. So you should know a couple things about it. So it's actually very easy to graph a circle. Okay, pretty simple. If it's in this form, if it's in the standard form, it's pretty easy to graph the circle, I should say. All right, so there's 2 things that we need to know to be able to graph a circle. Do you remember what that was from yesterday? And given this equation, what were the 2 things? The what? The R? Oh, I thought you said arc. Okay, yeah, the R, which is what? What's the R? Radius, okay? So we can find the radius. You should be able to look at it without doing any math at all and tell me what the radius is. What's the other thing you should be able to find? Yeah, and what? Say it, Cam.
The K and the H.
Right, the H and the K, which is the what?
The point.
Which is the what?
The center.
Center, very good, of the circle. So that's the HK. All right, so the center and the HK, I don't know, I put equals there. But anyway, that's what we're going to find. So let's find the radius first. So do you remember what our little formula was? It was x minus h, wasn't it? So what's the h going to be? This is a little bit tricky, so I want you to think about it. Remember what the formula is. It's x minus h. I'll write it. Where should I write it? Right, I'll tuck it up here. X minus h squared, not equals, what is it? Plus y minus k squared equals r squared. I'll just put r squared right there. Okay? So what is the h? I'm sorry. I said find the radius first, didn't I? I meant the center. I don't know what I'm thinking. It's early. So let's find the h and the k. Let's find that first, because we can find that just by looking at it. I'm sorry. We'd have to do a little bit of math. When I say little, very, very little, to find the radius. Okay, but let's find the center first, the h and the k. So what is it? Is it 3? Do I put a 3 right here? Why is it negative 3? Okay. So really, this is what? It is plus 3, but really you could look at it as x minus what? Negative 3. You see that? Isn't that the same thing? If we look at that little equation right there, it's x minus whatever the h is. So there's x, there's my minus, so what's the h? It's negative 3. That's the trickiest part of this, right there, I'm telling you. Are you with me or not? Okay, ask questions if you have any questions. All right, so it's x minus 3. You got it? So it's negative 3. So when it's a plus, it's actually the opposite sign. People like to think that, but I just like to refer to it as the, from the equation itself. So it's x minus what? It's x minus negative 3. What's this, though? What's the k? This is y minus what? What's the k? It's just a 2. It's not negative 2. It's just a positive 2. Because what's your equation? Y minus. So there's my y minus. And what's in the k spot? A 2 is in the k spot. And that's what we put right there. We good? It's not so bad, is it? That's the center of the circle. All right? Let me get rid of this. So what is the radius of the circle? Is it 16? No, because remember our equation is written r squared. So r squared is equal to 16. You shouldn't have to write this down eventually, okay? You should just be able to look at it and tell. So how do I solve for r? How do I get rid of that square? I take the square root, don't I? Now, normally we would put plus and minus, wouldn't we? But it's a radius. It's a distance. It's how long something is. Okay, would we put negative distance? No. We just use the positive version of it. Is that all right? So we don't put plus or minus. We just use the positive part. So r is what? What's the square root of 16? It's 4. So that's what the radius is. It's 4. I should have done this earlier, but let me grab this. And let's push this. We'll put it right here. Make this a little bit bigger. I was messing around with this thing yesterday, and there's actually, if I remember where it is, yeah, there it is. Watch this. I can go to rectangular grid tool, and look at this. I can make my own. That's not how I made that one right there, but I can make my own, and I can change the size of the grids and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to do that right now. I made this a different way, but you don't care, so so I'd throw that out there. So let's do this. Let's use a different color so it stands out against the white. And I'm not going to graph the radius first because I got to know where it starts from. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to graph is the center, and it's -3, too. So I come over. Everybody should be able to do that, right? -3, 1, 2, 3, +2, and it's going to be right there. That's the center of the circle. Now we have to make a radius of what? Of 4. So if I were you, now, of course, you don't have a fancy program like this to draw a perfect circle. You're going to have to do it by hand. So basically, what I would do is I would draw 4 points that are 4 places away from the center. All right, so let's go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to put a little dot right there so I know how wide or, how big my circle is going to be. And then count up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I count right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that way, that gives me an idea of how big my circle is going to be. Now, I'm terrible at drawing these with this little graphics tablet, but I'm going to try my best to make it look like a circle. It's going to look pretty ugly. Oh my gosh, that's worse than I thought. Let's try it again. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to draw it pretty. I can't stand it. All right, I got this little program, so let's use it. So hit shift. I'm going to have to move this. Oops. Come on. There we go. Move it right there. Then move this in. Move it over a little bit. You get the idea, right? But you would just draw it. Just doing it on paper. Oops. Daggone it. It's not as easy as it looks. Ah, goodness. Come on. Hit that circle. Where am I? Okay, there it is. Let's just use my arrow keys. Daggone it. It's still grabbing that graph. Oh, my word. Yeah, I'm all over the place now. Negative. Which way should I go? Wrong way. There we go. Now that's centered up. So now let's grab this dumb circle and let's take it to here. Let's take it to here. And let's make it just a little bit bigger. About right there. That's close enough for us, right? And there you go. There's the graph of the circle. It would have been easier if I would have just drawn an ugly looking circle, but you get the idea. Right? So that's what you can do. Again, try to make it as circular as possible. Obviously, I wasn't doing a great job at drawing it, but that's how you graph it. It's really not that hard, is it, to graph this? It's probably just as easy or maybe easier than graphing some of the other stuff we're going to be doing. So you put the center first, and then you just count 4 over to the right, to the left, up and down, and then you just kind of make a nice, pretty circle as best you can. All right? If you have not labeled the little grids right there, what I would do just to make sure that I know where that is, put a little thing right there. And if you wanted to, you could make a radius as well. You could put the radius anywhere because it's the same distance from that center, isn't it? And so you could put r equals 4 right there. Yeah. All right, so there it is. There's your graph. Enough of that. You okay with that? All right, let's move on. So let's scooch this up. And let's do example 3. So example 3. It says find the intercepts. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? We've done that before. So find the intercepts. It says if any, okay, because sometimes a circle doesn't cross the x-axis and it doesn't cross the y-axis. So sometimes there are no x or y intercepts, all right? So it does say if any. I'll put that right there. So if any of the circle, and then they give you the standard form of the circle, which is right here. So it's x plus 3 squared plus y minus 2. That looks like the same exact equation, doesn't it? Yeah, that's the same thing as we did before. So let's just take a look at the last one since it's the same one. So where do you think, let's do this in different color so it pops out a little bit. Where do you think the intercepts are? Remember, x and y intercepts. So where are they? Well, one's right there, isn't it? Crosses the x-axis. One's right there, it crosses the x-axis. Where else does it cross? The y-axis, right? Right there it crosses. Yeah? Is that it? Oh, yeah, right there. Boom. Yeah, I was wondering. I knew we had 2 x's and 2 y's. I was looking for it. If I blow that up a little bit, you could probably see it. But yeah, it's right there, there, and there. So I'm actually going to get 4 answers for my intercepts. Okay? So I just wanted you to see that. Since they gave you the same equation, I thought it was good to just look at what the graph looks like. But if you look at this, let's see. I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. If you look at it, it doesn't land like right on the grid mark, does it? So there's no way in the world I'd be able to guess exactly where that was. Would you agree? So just by graphing it, you're not going to be able to really see, where it crosses, because each one of these crosses somewhere in between those grid marks. So I don't know exactly where it crosses. So I'm going to have to do some math and figure out exactly where it is. So let's go ahead and do that. We've done intercepts before. So let's find the x-intercepts, where it crosses the x-axis. Do you remember what we do? We set what? Y equal to 0. Very good. And then we just solve for x. So let's do the math real quick. So y is going to be 0. So this is a little bit lengthy. Tell you what, let me give myself some more room down here at the bottom. Let's pull that up there. All right, so let's set y equal to 0. So I've got x plus 3. I'm going to go through the math a little bit quicker than I probably normally would. And then this is going to be 0 minus 2, and that's squared, and that equals 16. So what am I solving for? I'm solving for the only variable that I have, which is x. So let's go ahead and do this. It's x plus 3 squared. What do we do? Do we just go x squared plus 3 squared? No, we have to do this. It's x plus 3 times x plus 3. And we're going to do a little FOIL method with that. Is this coming back to you? This is why we did this stuff in that review chapter at the beginning of the year. What's this? 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is, well, I'll tell you what. Let's just write it down. We got to do another step with this anyway, so let's just do that. And that equals 16. All right, let's do this. It's going to be x squared plus 3x, which is 6x, plus 3 times 3 is 9. What's this going to be? Negative 2 squared. That's going to be a positive 4, isn't it? All right? And then give me a sec. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. This would be correct, okay, but it's going to make it a lot harder in the end. I should have done that. I'm glad I took notes on this, okay, because it's a little bit easier. Watch, I'm going to show you. It's not really a trick. It's just a little bit easier way to do it. And this is going to be, what do we say? Plus 4, right? So let's move it to the other side. So if this is plus 4, what's this going to be over here? Can you do that in your head or not? All right, this is going to be a positive 4. And we want to get rid of it, move it to the other side. So we subtract a 4. So 16 minus 4 is 12. Yeah? This next part is why I changed it up. Instead of going x plus 3 times x plus 3, what we're going to do is just get rid of that square right there. So let's do that right now. So we square root both sides. It just makes it a little bit easier. It will work the other way that we did it. It's just going to be a little more complicated, okay? So we square root both sides. Now this time we do put a plus or minus because we're finding a point. So we're not just finding the length of a line. So we do put the plus or minus. So let's finish it up. It's -3 plus or minus. You could simplify this if you want to. This is 4 times 3. To tell you the truth, they're going to write it as a decimal anyway, so let's just keep it like that. So what they do is they take this and they throw it in their calculator. There's 2 things you got to put in the calculator. You can't do it all at once, okay? You put -3 plus square root of 12, right? And just due to time, I'm not going to bring a calculator out and show you, but it's -3 plus the square root of 12, and it gives us a number. So when you get that, you get 0.46, all right? And then we have a minus. It's -3 minus square root of 12. So once you get that, you get -6.46. Okay? Let's see if that makes sense. So that's close to a half, right? All right, so that's about x equals a half, and this is about -6.5, about, all right? So let's come over here. So what did we say? -6.5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. Yep. That's pretty close, isn't it? Can you see it all right? It's a little small. Bring it down like this. So watch. -6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that looks like it goes right through a half, doesn't it? All right. It's 0.46, so I couldn't really guess 0.46. There's no way I would have guessed that. And what was the other x? It was positive just 0.46, and it kind of looks like it right there, doesn't it? Might be just a little bit off because my graph doesn't hit exactly where it's supposed to, but that's that. So yeah, that makes sense, right? That looks like that would be true. All right, so let's do the y-intercept. Let's write that down here. So let's do the y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept, we set what? X equal to 0. So let's do that. I'll just write out the whole thing just so you don't get confused. Y minus 2, that's squared, equals 16. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to solve for y. So this is 0 plus 3, which is 3 squared, which is 9, and plus y minus 2 squared equals 16. Let's subtract a 9 from both sides. So we'll keep that there. So if we subtract a 9, what's that going to give you? 7? All right, that's supposed to be a 2. It's a weird looking 2. But what do? Get rid of that square. So we square root. So I've got y minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 7. Almost done. Y equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 7. You could keep it like that, but there's no way you know where that is on the graph, right? If I was to graph that, there's no way off the top of your head you would know what that was. So you stick it in a calculator, and the plus would give you a 4.65, and then the minus would give you a -0.65. All right? So if you go and check in your graph again, 4.65, let's blow this up a little bit. The y-intercept is 4.65, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and right there, it's a little more than a half. Yep, that looks like it works, doesn't it? And then what was the other one? Just 0.65? Okay, so the y-intercept, or it's -0.65, right? So there it is right there. Okay, there's your -0.65. Yeah, it looks like it works. So that should make a little bit of sense with that graph right there, doesn't it? Finding out where your intercepts are, and that is your answer. So your x-intercepts are right here, and your y-intercepts are right there. That would be your answer. That's what they're asking for. Okay, so if they ask for that on a homework, that's what you get. Let me go through one more thing. This is really, that was kind of from the first part of section 2.4. This is from the second part. That equation of a circle, I gave it a specific form, a name for the form. Do you remember what the name of that form was? It's the blank form of the equation of a circle. Standard form, very good. Okay, so this time what we're going to do is we're going to do the general form. The general form is really never that practical. All right, it just looks a little bit neater and nicer. That's all I can figure out. So the general form of an equation of a circle. The standard form is the one you like because you can just look at it and tell what the radius is, right, with a little bit of math, and then you can look at it and tell what the center of the circle is. The general form is not quite so easy, but they want you to figure it out. Equation of a circle. Do I have time? Do I have time? Yeah, I got time. So let's do this. What we're going to do is show you, I like to do this sometimes, I like to show you where they got the formula from. All right, so they got it from the standard form. And we got with the standard form from something else. Okay, so I showed you how to get the standard form, and now I'm going to show you from the standard form how to get the general form. So if you want to take notes on this, that'd be great. This is not anything that I'm going to ask you to do on a quiz or a test. But it's just kind of nice to see where this general form comes from. I'm going to go pretty quick, so just hang on and just try to follow. Actually, what they do, they actually do it a little bit easier. I could go through all this and show it, but they do it just a little bit easier. I forgot that they did this. So what they did is they just threw some numbers in here just to make it a little bit easier for you to do the math. Because doing the math with just all letters can be a little bit confusing. All right, so what they decided to do is stick some numbers in here. It makes it a little easier, things simplify and that kind of thing. And then you can see how it relates to what we're going to do. So this is what we're going to do. This is in standard form right here. We're going to take this and put it into general form. So we are actually going to do the math that we were going to do earlier, but now we're going to do it. So we get this, because that's squared, right? Because anytime you square something, you multiply it by itself, and that equals 16. So let's do the math on this. So let's FOIL it. So that's x squared plus 3x is plus 6x. This is where I was going with the other problem. All right, so we get that. What about this one? This is going to be y squared minus 2y, which is minus 4y, and then negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. That equals 16. Now, what you're going to do on general form, almost every single equation they give you when they say it's in general form, they stick everything on the left and they set it equal to 0. All right, we actually had a general form for something else. I forget what that was off the top of my head. But anyway, we did have a general form for something else that we talked about. So everything's going to be on the left and we just set it equal to 0. All right. And we're going to put the x squared and the y squared together. So the x squared plus the y squared. Okay, so I'm done with that. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to put everything on the left-hand side. What else can we put here? We got the x squareds first. Let's put the x and the y next. So I'm going to put a plus 6x and then a minus 4y over here. And you're like, well, Mr. Hamrick, this is really no different. All you did was just change the order. Well, I am going to take this 16 and then move it over to the left in a minute here. Okay, let's do that now. So 9 plus 4 is what? 13, right? If I subtract a 16 from 13, what do I get? Get a negative 3, and that equals 0. So that right there is in general form. That's the general form. But let's use some letters to make this look a little bit nicer. And let's put it in red so it stands out a little bit. So here's what the general form is. I know you're so excited about seeing it. So it's x squared plus y squared. Now look at this. This could represent any number at all. So what they're going to do to represent any number, because this is a specific number to that specific form, that specific equation of a circle. But if I want to be general, I'm just going to say, let's just give this any letter. So what's a good letter to give it? How about A? That's the first letter, right? So let's just call this AX. All right? And this letter right here, we're going to put a plus, but what's the next letter you might want to put? We used A. What's the next one we might want to use? Yeah, let's use B. All right. And then this number sitting there by itself, it doesn't have an X or a Y with it. It's just a number sitting by itself. We'll just put a C. So that right there is the general form to an equation of a circle. Okay. There it is. So I just showed you how you got it. I could have very easily saved 5 minutes and just said, here's what the general form is. Just know it, remember it, enjoy it, whatever. I'll just keep it right there. Yeah, I got to move on because of time. So let's keep going. What color haven't I used? Can you see purple? Can you see that all right or not? All right, let's try purple. So, example 4 says graph the equation of a circle. And I'm just going to write what the equation is. This time, they don't give it to you in standard form. We saw earlier today that if they give it to you in standard form, super easy. All right? In general form, not quite so easy. You can't just look at it and graph it. You're going to have to do some math. And you're probably thinking, and I'm thinking the same thing, why in the world would they want to put it in general form then if you can't just look at it and graph it? Well, I don't know, to tell you the truth. Again, they just like everything shoved over there to the left and set equal to 0. Sometimes that's a lot nicer. I'm sure that there's practical reasons for it. I don't really know off the top of my head. So what I'm going to do is this. I want to change this, that's in general form, and I want to put it back into standard form. All right? It seems like it's crazy. We're going back and forth with this. So I only got 3 minutes, so I got to do this quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the x's and group those together. So I'm going to take the x squared plus the 4x and put those together. All right? And then I'm going to put a plus. Then I'm going to take, what do you think I'm going to do now? Take the y's and put those together. So y squared minus 6y. And what I want to do now with the standard form, remember that I want the r squared on the right-hand side. So I'm going to take my constants and move it over to the right-hand side. My only constant is this 12. I subtract it, so I'll get a negative 12. All right? Now, this part right here, you probably won't remember. That purple's too hard to see. Let's go with this yellowish-looking color. This is called completing the square. So I'm just going to show you. Okay, to complete the square, I want to put something right here. We did this earlier in the year. But what I do is take the middle term, take half of it. What's half of 4? 2. I square 2 and I get 4. Okay, that's going to make it into a perfect square. Now, if I add a 4 to this side, I have to add a 4 to the other side. All right, if you don't remember this, don't worry. Well, eventually you're going to have to worry about this because you're going to have to do this yourself. But maybe we'll take a day where we go over this a little bit more. So y squared minus 6y plus, then put a parentheses. Now, how'd we do it again? We took half of this, which is 3, and we square 3, and we get 9. If I added a 9 to the left side, I got a what? Add a 9 to the right side. So if you do this math over here, you actually get a 1, don't you? Is that right? Yep, that's 13. Negative 12 plus 13 is 1. Now, why did I do this? I did this so that I get a perfect square. So this is now a perfect square. You see that? This is now a perfect square. Now, what form does it look like? That looks like standard form, doesn't it? Okay? And it says graph it. So what do? We find two things. We find our HK, which is our center. We find R, which is our radius. Just looking at it, I can figure out what my HK is. My H is x minus negative 2, so it's a negative 2. And this is y minus 3, so that's a 3. What's my radius? R squared is equal to this. It's just a 1. So I don't have time right now. The bell's going to ring. But you know how to graph this now, right? Negative 2, 3. Radius is 1. Draw your circle. You're good to go. Here's your homework. I always write homework in red, don't I? Let's make sure I do homework in red. Now, if I went a little fast, you can always go back to the video. That's the nice thing about doing the video. So here's your homework. So it's section 2.4. And this is part 1. This is our first homework for section 2.4. And it's page 193. And we're doing 11 to 33. And we're just doing the odds. Look at that. Right on time.